Blessed are the cheesemakers. I can't hear that without thinking of Life of Brian. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Now there's two parts to that. Peacemaking and becoming a child of God. Peacemaking is at the heart of Christian action or behaviour, and becoming a child of God is at the heart of the Christian theology of salvation, and we'll get into that. In terms of peacemaking as being the heart of Christian action, the context is there throughout the ministry of Jesus and beyond. And the context that hovers over the whole of the New Testament is the Roman Empire and something that happened in 70 CE. So Israel, the Holy Land, was occupied by a brutal pagan Roman Empire during Jesus' ministry. It was the Roman Empire that crucified Jesus. Now, Jesus certainly didn't approve of the Romans or of the occupation, but he had a certain way of dealing with situations like that. But there was a group called the Zealots, and we think Judas was probably one of the Zealots, and that's where we get the word zealous from. The Zealots didn't want any compromise. They wanted a violent rebellion against the Romans. They thought that God would come to their aid and they would be liberated. Jesus rejected their approach. And in 70 CE, just over 3 decades after Jesus' death, the Zealots got their way. There was a violent rebellion. It was crushed mercilessly. And the temple in Jerusalem, the focal point of all Jews, that was indispensable to their worship, to their whole identity, their whole spiritual life, the temple was destroyed to the extent that all that survives is that small portion of it known as the Temple Mount, which we see in Jerusalem today under the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Jesus taught a different way. He said, you turn the other cheek. And if a Roman soldier asks you to carry his pack for a mile, you go an extra mile. And now people say, well, there's a hint of rebellion in this. It's a clever way of getting back, but it's certainly not violent. He also forgave those who were killing him as he was dying. There are many, many situations in which the New Testament record is that Jesus and the apostles advocated non-violence. But that doesn't mean that they approve of everything that they don't take up arms against. It's just that there's a particular Christian way of bringing change. Now, that goes into a number of different issues. It can go into the question of if your country is occupied by an enemy. It can go into personal relationships, slave holding, abusive husbands, and so on. And at times we're uncomfortable with the fact that New Testament authors said submit to this. But we can be sure that they didn't approve of the godless way that women were being subdued, or that nations were being oppressed and invaded and occupied. But they had a particular angle on how you should deal with that, and maybe just what the wisest, the most prudent way of resisting that situation was at the time. It's a very controversial area. Anyway, some Christians take all this to mean that they must be complete pacifists. No violence in any situation whatsoever. And we've seen that within relatively recent memory in the two world wars of the 20th century, many Christian conscientious objectors. Now, if you're interested in Christian pacifism, I do recommend that you watch a film called Hacksaw Ridge. It's an incredible movie, and it features the story of Desmond Doss, who was a Seventh-day Adventist conscientious objector. It's just such an incredible film. Not all Christians believe in total pacifism, but all Christians would like to be known as a peacemaker in some sense. Many Christians who reject pacifism believe in something known as the just war theory, which says that war is a last resort, the lesser of two evils, and can only be fought under some very limited conditions. Now, there's loads of stuff on the internet. If you want to find out more about that, just Google just war theory. There's loads of stuff. The question always is, what would you do about Hitler? What would you do about ISIS? Can you reason with those people? Well, we've got a lot to learn from the Bible in wrestling with those questions, but I got to tell you, I don't think there are any easy answers to a conundrum like that. So what about this idea of being a child of God and how that's central to salvation? Well, if we can put it in simple terms, the aim of the Christian life is to be like Jesus, to become a brother or a sister to Jesus, and Jesus is known as the Son of God, and so if you are a brother or sister of the Son of God, you become a child of God, and you are adopted into God's family in that way. That's the language in which salvation is described in the Bible, but I understand that that may well not be your language. So let's look at this for non-Christians. What can this idea of being a child of God mean for you? Well, in your worldview, what is the ultimate destiny, the ultimate end point of everything that you believe in? Is it peace, real peace? And when I say peace, I don't mean the absence of war. I mean the presence of justice, a really true, lasting, glorious peace. Is that where your worldview is headed? Do you believe that you ought to get there, that you must get there, that you can only get there if you do it in the least violent, most peaceful way possible? Do you yearn for reconciliation with your enemies rather than revenge? If you say yes to any of that, then I think that you could join with me in saying, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Amen. See you next time.